Hey everyone, God bless you. Thanks so much for tuning in. I have prepared a reflection for you entitled The Science of Spiritual Medicine. The last few reflections have been dedicated to the central focus of discipleship in the life of Christian people and the goal of being like Christ and being his faithful students so that what he said would come to pass for us, that we as pupils, when fully trained, would become just like the master, that we would become like him. This reflection is designed to support that quest and to give it a perspective of pursuing health. Hence the title, The Science of Spiritual Medicine. That is actual language directly from the church, from the Quinisex Council, and the 102nd canon. 102 canons were given to the church at the Quinisex Council, and this is the 102nd. It's a perspective on the spiritual life that is extremely important, and that is the quest for spiritual health and repentance, and the process of repentance as a medicinal process, a process of treating the soul in the hospital of the church with the great medicines of the mysteries and under the care of a spiritual father who is the physician of the soul. This is the language of Canon 102. Those who have received from God the power to loose and to bind must consider the particular nature of the sin and the readiness of the sinner for amendment. So here, those bishops and priests are called not just people who can bind and loose, of course, that's Jesus's language, but they're considered to be physicians, spiritual physicians, who must consider the particular nature of the sin and the readiness of the sinner for amendment. You know, in order to help someone pastorally and in the mystery of confession to heal a soul, the nature of the sin has to be diagnosed. Exactly what kind of sin is it? And in what stage is it manifesting? Just imagine sin as a disease, right? You have diseases that are barely manifesting, diseases that are greatly manifesting, diseases that are not going to be healed at all, that are terminal. It's the same with the cure of the soul, meaning that sins appear in different ways. They can be in a nascent form, like in thought. They could have spread to some tentative expression in words or movements, or they could have a full-blown dominion over a person, leading that person to, in soul and body, fully engage in a terrible sin. So sins have to be evaluated. Is it a sin of the body primarily or of the soul? Is it in its early stages, mid stages, or is it really like it needs a major surgery because it's terminal if we don't do something about it? We measure the degrees of the disease. The priest is also asked to study the readiness of the confessee for amendment, right? We have to study the particular nature of the sin and the readiness of the sinner for amendment. This means that we have to find out, is the person motivated? Are they contrite? Are they able in this condition to take definitive action against this? Is their heart compunctionate? The more compunctionate someone is, the more repentant someone is, the more that they're gripped by the seriousness of what their disease is, the easier the treatment is, and the shorter the distance to health and to healing. Of course, if someone is confessing a serious sin, but they have no tears, they're not compunctionate, they haven't felt the weight, the grievous nature of what they're doing in the eyes of God and to other people, well, you have a much harder task of healing on your hands. Confession is then considered two things by this Canon 102, which is so determinative for our understanding of the healing of the soul. And that is, it's a medicinal examination of soul and a diagnosis. So the priest has to examine through questions and through listening carefully, and he has to diagnose. And then he has to apply a suitable remedy for the illness, lest, quote, exceeding the mark in one or the other sense, he failed to obtain the salvation of the one afflicted. The priest has to be very careful because he can leave the person sick if he makes a bad diagnosis or doesn't guide the person to a correct path of healing, doesn't give the proper medicines. That would be sad to make either improperly diagnose it as less serious than it is or more serious than it is. There are temptations on both sides. The illness of sin is not simple in nature. It's diverse and complex. The spiritual physician grows in knowledge and experience over time. This is for sure. Priests and bishops who are spiritual fathers, who are actively confessing people, must constantly, like any good doctor of the body, be growing, reading the latest research, so to speak. Right? That means studying the fathers and developing your knowledge of how sin works and what's connected to it and what precedes it and what can be produced by it and what are the signs of healing. All of those things are matters of competence, of studying. The illness of sin is not simple in nature. It's diverse and complex, and the spiritual physicians must grow in knowledge and experience until this sin is, quote, stayed by the power of the one treating it. This is the language of the canon. It's the goal, is that the physician be competent and that the patient receive the medicine, take it, and stay the sin and bring healing. Notice that the priest is called a healer in this canon. And he must, quote, examine the disposition of the one who has sinned. This means that besides studying the sin itself, he has to see what is the disposition of the person repenting. What is our dispositions when we come? Are we really wanting to be well? Remember when Jesus asked the man, do you really want to get well, even though for years he had been sitting by the pool? It's one thing to be there physically. It's another thing to really want to get better. This is the case also for confession. We could go to confession for any number of reasons. We could go for the best reason, which is to draw near to God and to offer a sincere repentance and to be restored to intimacy with him and to the sacraments. Or we could go simply because we want to consider ourselves to be righteous, and that's what righteous people do. They go to confession. We may not have any compunction or tears or resolve to change our ways. That is a most unfortunate way to approach the sacrament. And so the healer has to examine the disposition of the one who has sinned. Is he inclined to health or habitually attached to the sin? Because that will determine the disposition of the healer and the prescription for health. Is the penitent resisting the medicine or cooperating with the medicine? And notice here, confession is considered medicine. Some patients take the medicine well and some don't. Some, they fill the prescription that the doctor gives. They go to the pharmacy, they get the medicine, but they don't actually open it and take the pills faithfully. There's a parallel spiritually. We must, it says, according to this canon, measure mercy carefully. Quote, for the entire concern of God and of the one entrusted with pastoral authority. Notice that it is assuming that any competent pastor has the heart of God about this, that the concern of God and the concern of the priest are one and the same. We priests have to make sure we manifested the great zeal and love for the sick that the Lord has, every penitent. For the entire concern of God and of the one entrusted with pastoral authority is to bring back the lost sheep and heal the serpent's bite, right? Avoiding the two temptations of despair on the one side or carelessness on the other. The person who's despairing needs a word of encouragement, assurance of love and the mercy of God. The person who's despairing over here needs a hard word, needs to be shaken from his stupor. From all angles, you see that the practice of confession, the role of the confessor, and the nature of the holy canons themselves are therapeutic, medicinal. And the goal, to wisely guide the man who is called to heavenly splendor. That's the goal of healing in the church. And that is to fully escort the man, heal him so that he can enter into heavenly splendor, because that is the will of God for every person, that they enjoy the eternal glory that he is and exists in with him and with all of the saints. This is the working out, by the way, of the parable of the Good Samaritan, dear ones. We're wounded. We've been beat up and left half dead by the demons and by our own weaknesses in the flesh. We have been cared for by the Good Samaritan who has come and attended to our wounds, pouring in oil and wine and the mysteries of the sacraments, healing our souls. He's put us on his own donkey. He's carried us by his own incarnation. He's been taking us to the inn, which is the church. We've been entrusted to the care of the innkeepers, who are the bishops and priests of the church, commissioned by Christ to heal the sick. And he will come again to square away with the innkeepers and to see the health of the man who was sick. This is the the glory of spiritual medicine in the church, which is the hospital of souls. If you want to read more about it, I want to recommend this wonderful book by Metropolitan Ierótheos Vlachos, The Science of Spiritual Medicine. It was published in 2010 for the first time in the English language. It's an incredible book, both for priests who are confessors and also for those who are confessing. It also has a dedication to the great elder, I think he fell asleep in 1989, Elder Epiphanios Theodoropoulos of Athens, who himself was a famed physician of souls many years in his ministry in downtown Athens. May Elder Epiphanios' prayers be with us, and may God bless you. Blessed Lord's Day to all of you, brothers and sisters.
For November 17th, on which we commemorate Saint Gregory of Tours.
As we begin this new course in the St. John Chrysostom Catechetical School.
Now available on both Apple and Google Play stores.